Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. The present module deals with women's participation in nationalist movement in the extremist phase. This particular module deals with those women who did not agree with moderate phase and they were against the reformist zeal of the moderates. They believed that if we really want to participate in the nationalist movement, women must have an independent place. And these women were Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain, Pandita Ramabai, Swarna Kumari, Akarupa Bai, and many such others. So in this particular module we will see that how these women disagreed with the women who participated in the moderate phase. Studies on women's role in the nationalist movement or of the implications show social or political of their momentous entry into the public sphere are scant. Important works on the national movement mostly fail to examine the significance of women's participation in the freedom struggle. The history of national movement would be incomplete without mentioning the contributions of women. Women shouldered critical responsibilities in India's struggle for freedom. The sacrifices made by the women of India occupies the foremost place. They fought with true spirit and unfed courage and faced various tortures, exploitations and hardships to earn us freedom. When most of the men freedom fighters were in prison, it were the women who came forward and took charge of the struggle. The list of great women whose names have gone down in history for their dedication and undying devotion to the service of India is a long one. The closing decade of the 19th century and early years of the 20th century witnessed emergence of a new and younger group within the Indian National Congress who were sharply critical of moderate policy of loyalty to British and advocacy of the constitutional means. The younger group alias extremists demanded far more vigorous political actions and methods than those of the meetings, petitions, memorials, etc. If we focus over the social composition of moderate leadership, we can underline two specific features. Firstly, the moderate leaders were very successful in their professions, so politics was only a part-time affair for them. Secondly, almost all of them were English educated people, so they were not sharing social base with common people. On the other hand, the new extremists emerged, appealed to a wider circle of the lower middle class students and sections of peasants and workers. Instead of prayers and petitions, self-reliance and constructive work became the new slogan. Self-help, passive resistance, use of vernaculars, utilization of traditional popular customs like village fair came to be recognized as the best way of bridging the gulf between have and have-nots. With the beginning of the extremist phase, the nature and focus of the national movement took a major shift. In this phase, women's interests and concerns started taking a concrete shape. Unlike the late 19th century, when women organizations were mostly formed by men, in this phase, many such organizations were established by women themselves. Four reasons can be underlined behind this phenomena. A. Feminist movement. B. Feminist literature. C. Swadeshi movement. D. Organizations established by women. Unlike the Western feminist movement, India's movement was initiated by men and later joined by women. The efforts of these men included abolishing sati, abolishing the custom of child marriage, abolishing the disfiguring of widows, introducing the marriage of upper caste Hindu widows, promoting women's education, obtaining legal rights for women to own property, and requiring the law to acknowledge women's status by granting them basic rights in matters such as adoption. The 19th century was a period that saw a majority of women's issues come under the spotlight and reforms began to be made. Much of the early reforms for Indian women were conducted by men. However, by the late 19th century, they were joined in their efforts by their wives, sisters, daughters, proteges, and other individuals directly affected by campaigns such as those carried out for women education. Emboldened women gained greater autonomy through the formation of independent women's own organizations. Likewise, women writers, by actively entering the scene and shifting attention from social perspective to personal ones, provided a new direction for both social and functional development. They focused on women's freedom, their rights to health, and were in general critical of those practices which denigrated women. The work of women writers is different from the work of their male predecessors. There is a shift from married or abandoned women to questions which relate to the formation of female self. Women are beginning to be seen as active agents of the making of their selves and as an individual endowed with psychological perceptions. Many novels reflect upon moral values, the question of right and wrong, and to say about religious strictures which confine women with their rigid practices. Tarabai Shinde made fun of the reformist zeal and labeled it as male self-indulgence. She advocated speeding up of processes of enabling women so that they could define their own directions. By beginning to focus attention on questions like choice and freedom, Swarnakumari Devi and Karupa Bai drew attention to the personhood of women. Not only this affects the work of later male writers and their construction of womanhood, but also called attention to the intellectuals being a woman. In this line, Rokeya Shekhawat Hussain went a step further and created an imaginary utopian world which offered comment on both the reality and aspirations of women. Belonging to an Orthodox Muslim family, she was able to learn both English and Bengali through sheer determination. Besides playing a dominant role in the women's movement in writing fiction, Rokeya Shekhawat Hussain also wrote two fictional works, Padam Rag in 1903 and Sultana Dreams in 1905. Both of them have stronger gender statements. Moreover, she founded an education institution for the Muslim girls in Bhagalpur in the year 1909. Later in the year 1911, she also founded Shekhawat Memorial Balika Vidyalaya in Calcutta. There are many other female writers in the line, the writing of whom made women emboldened enough to become a part of mainstream and national movement. In 1890s, the women constantly participated in Congress activities. Among them, women activists like Pandita Ramabai, who was awarded by the Medal of Kesari-e-Hind for community service in 1919, on 26 October 1989, in recognition of her contribution to the advancement of Indian women, the Government of India issued a commemorative stamp, and female professionals like Kadambini Ganguly, who organized the Women's Conference in Calcutta on the partition of Bengal in 1905, were notable. The early 20th century, further active political female participation occurred with the increase in nationalism, mass strife for self-rule, including the boycott of British goods, and events such as the arrest of extremist leader Bal Gangadhar Tilak led to the strike in Bombay. Women joined the agitation, organized Swadeshi meetings, boycotted foreign articles, and donated money. Swarna Kumari Devi founded Sakhi Samiti with the aim of educating widows to be self-reliant. She also started organizing Mahila Shilp Melas, which served three major purposes: fundraising for Sakhi Samiti, making women self-reliant, and promoting indigenous cottage industry as a mark of Swadeshi. These fairs created a new role for women in the national movement and also made self-reliance of women and national interest as complementary to each other. Further, Sarla Devi Chaudhrani stressed upon the need of a permanent women's organization. This stand of hers was widely opposed by her male counterparts. But in reply to her opponents, she blamed them for still living in the shade of Manu, who could not accept women's independent voices and actions. She founded Bharat Stri Mahamandal, which mainly focused on women-related social and political issues, but also enabled and trained women in putting their demands to the government. During this phase, on the one hand, INC, with its extremist policies, wanted to involve masses in the national movement. On the other, women, through participation in organizations like Sakhi Samiti and Bharat Stri Mahamandal, were quite prepared to adopt the new role of active participants in the national movement. However, women's active participation during this phase in the national movement, especially in the programs of Swadeshi and boycott, was not a nationwide feature, rather region-specific. Since Bengal was the major sufferer of the hostile policy of British, as a part of which it had undergone partition, the outrage against the British rule was much stronger in the region, and so women's participation in Swadeshi movement in Bengal was remarkable. For example, about 500 women assembled in Jenokad village in the district of Murshidabad to protest against partition of Bengal and also to advocate use of Swadeshi goods. Many women belonging to nationalist families formed support groups for the movement. Besides, middle-class women contributed their jewelry and money for the cause of Swadeshi. Though Bengal stood first in women's participation in Swadeshi movement, but in other parts also, there were few instances of women's participation. In Maharashtra, 120 high caste Brahmin women took part in a meeting on Swadeshi, presided over by Parvati Bapat, where they adopted a resolution to boycott the foreign goods. Similarly, in Punjab, women organized a ladies' meeting at the Industrial and Agricultural Exhibition of 1909, where they spoke for promoting Swadeshi at Lahore. Thus, during the extremist era, the Swadeshi movement provided a new opportunity to women outside the elite circle to participate in the national movement. It cannot be denied that during this phase, women moved ahead from their symbolic presence to substantial presence. Referring to this changing nature of women's participation, Forbes has rightly commented, I quote, "The activities of these Bengali women sympathetic to the Swadeshi movement were quite different from their representative roles in the INC. There the delegates appeared as the equals of men, but their true significance was symbolic. In the protest movement against the partition of Bengal, women did not do the same things as men. Instead, they used their traditional roles to mark a range of political activities. While the public and the private continued to exist as distinct categories, usual definition of appropriate in each sphere were redefined and given political meaning." Unquote. Even the wives of governor generals and British administrators also contributed in the emancipation of women during those days, like Lady Dufferin, Lady Curzon, Lady Hardinge. Lady Dufferin founded a national organization with its regional offices in order to provide medical help to women. Later in 1914, this organization gave way to formation of Indian Women Medical Services. Similarly, Lady Curzon, in order to give training to maids, established Victoria Memorial Scholarship Fund in 1903. In 1916, it was the efforts of Lady Hardinge which were culminated into the formation of Lady Hardinge Medical College in Delhi to provide medical education to women. Anjuman-e Khawateen-e-Islam, a Punjab-based Muslim women organization, was formed in 1914. Its founder member was Amir-u-Nisha. In 1914, Annie Wood Besant influence increased in the Congress. Under her mediation, the door of Congress was opened for the extremists in 1915, resulted into famous Lucknow session of 1916. Annie Besant also advocated emancipation of Indian women. In fact, many Indian women joined her Home Rule movement. According to her, the Home Rule movement was rendered tenfold more effective by the involvement of large number of women who brought to it the uncalculating heroism, the endurance, and the self-sacrifice of the feminine nature. She became the first chairperson of the Women's Indian Association, formed in the year 1917. It was the first national women's organization, founders of which were Margaret Coggins and Dorothy Jinars-Jadasa. These, along with Malti Patwardhan, Ammi Swaminathan, Mrs. Dada Bhai, and Mrs. Anjumal, were its secretaries. The organization had its monthly magazine called Stri Dharm. Its main works were to build up education, religion, politics, and equity-based society. WIA joined itself with self-respect movement in Madras. Dorothy D. Law Hay helped in establishing Madras's first women's college, known as Queen's Mary College. It was opened by government in 1914 as the Madras College for Women. But in 1917, it was renamed Queen Mary College after the Queen Empress. It was the third oldest women's college in the country, the second oldest in the south, and the oldest in Madras city. Under Dorothy D. Law Hay, the college was not only to play a major role in the emancipation of women in the south, but also encouraged many of its brighter students to join its neighbor, Presidency College, for higher studies. Another forerunner of women's participation in the national movement was Sarojini Naidu. She worked as an active politician and freedom fighter. In 1917, she led the delegation to meet Mr. Montagu for women's suffrage and played a major role in decision making in whole of the national movement. It is thus significant to underline here that the extremist phase resulted into double advantages for women. One, increase in participation of ordinary women in Swadeshi movement. The other, substantial role of women in Indian National Congress in place of mere symbolic role. It was the extremist period which provided army of trained female volunteers to Gandhi to launch national movements like NCM, CDM, QIM. Thus one can unequivocally claim that there was a major shift in the nature of women's participation in the national movement during the extremist phase. Thus in this module we have seen how there was a paradigm shift from the moderate phase to the extremist phase. In the extremist phase, the women, they revolted against their traditional roles. They never wanted that they should confine themselves and be treated only as passive recipient. They rather insisted that they should be treated as active agent. They should have their own personhood. They should define their roles, and to this effect many a women contributed a lot, and because of their contribution the women, they came out and they were trained volunteers and they could effectively play a role in the national movement, and which one can say that which proved very effective as far as the women's question was concerned in the national movement. Thank you very much.